I suppose the first question I have for you is Viper Soup Complex. What a strange name. How did you come by that name?
It's more about how it sounds
All right.
rather than what the words actually mean. Because the words, okay, they were brought up in our conversation when we were discussing band names, sort of ideas, but then we just settled on how it sounds.
So
And
just the
in a way,
phonetic
it
quality.
makes sense how Viper Subcomplex as a band name sounds. It captures how the band sounds.
All right. Okay. I mean, it's obviously a name that's going to prompt quite a few people to wonder where it came from. So you've just chosen it because it somehow the phonetically it represents your music.
Yes, but besides from that as well, at the beginning we thought of naming the band Viper Room, right?
Yeah, but that's taken.
But that was taken. And then at that time we said our music feels a bit like a soup of things with different ingredients, with different sorts of characteristics. So we said, okay, Viper soup, because there's so much into our music, and sometimes we go so much wherever the music takes us that it's a bit of a mix of everything. And then at the time I was studying something related to something called complexes. And I'm like, okay, at times this is too complex for me to understand. I cannot get you guys. So then it's Viper Soup Complex. And then we said, it actually sounds really good how it's
Well, it was actually
linked together.
it was actually the name that drew me in really, because I saw the name and the way it's written as well. Beautiful font. I mean, the logo is fantastic. I thought I'd instantly intrigued as to who you were. So I mean, you're from Malta, is that right?
Yes.
Right. So I feel like saying you're all Maltesers, is that right?
Yes.
Maltesers.
Yes. At some point you will hear the fireworks because we have.
They just started
because we have village feasts happening at the moment, which is typically Maltese. So if you hear all the noise, it's because of that.
Okay. So how did the band form anyway? So how long have you been about and how did the band form?
The band formed
in 2012.
2012. It was no. I had a previous band which Anne had joined in, but then that band stopped, right? We did something else more well music oriented when we brought in a new guitarist. But then this new guitarist and I we started jamming, and he was into metal. He's the guy who is present in our debut album in Red Fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy listened to extreme, Satriani vibe, and the way he plays is very he's into jazz, he's into flamenco, and then we started this band. It was a trio. It was myself, Owen, and Julian on drums, and we just started jamming. Basically, that was it. We just started. We weren't mainly looking to compose. We're just looking to have fun and to explore different ideas and see where it takes us, jamming and all that. Then Anne, she was enjoying our music, and she asked to join in. I made it a bit difficult for her at first because we were.
You did.
Yes,
you did.
Because we were just looking to have something sort of like the Aristocrats, more like our trio, and let's not concentrate and specify into a typical song structure. But then, and she brought in her her other dimension, which was whatever she could do with her voice, and this was something which we sought to explore.
Yeah.
Then David joined in, the keyboardist who is still with us till today. A couple of guitarist or guitar member changes later. One drummer, the drummer changed, and now we have this lineup.
Yes.
Well, a number of things that drew me in. First one was the name. Then I think it was watching some videos on YouTube and Anne-Marie's performance and just how theatrical it all is. It seems this wonderful melding you've got. It's very heavy, melodic, progressive, but also very theatrical, which I quite like. Do you think theatre is very important to your music? Or, I mean, if you think about classic progressive rock, it's always been very theatrical, really, with Keith Emerson stabbing the knives in his keyboards. You had Genesis and Peter Gabriel. There's always been that very theatrical element. Do you think it's very important and to your music?
Yes. It froze for a moment. Sorry, I think. Yes, for me, I think that the theatrics are very important. It started off with the need to express myself more, because I always felt very limited to just stay behind the microphone and just sing the songs. So I felt that I wasn't expressing myself enough, and at the time I didn't have time to learn and how to play an instrument, for example. So then I started looking into contemporary dance. At the time I had another band through which I was also experimenting with different theatrics. And I said, how wonderful, with all the stories we create in Viper, I can actually add them out. So then I tried to sort of amalgamate contemporary dance or movement with drama. I realized that I was having much more fun. I realized that somehow after each and every performance, I was feeling more satisfied, because somehow whatever I wanted to convey was more out there. I think that somehow it helped me also to connect more with my audience, because the movements are very raw. They are not complicated movements. They are movements that everyone can do and everyone can replicate. So somehow I felt that I could connect with my audience much more. At times I involved the audience as well in my performances, having them on stage and drawing them in, making them part of it all.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a bit more complete. That's how it was for me. Yeah. So yeah, I think I wouldn't know how to place myself on a stage if it wasn't for theatrics, I think.
Well, there was this progressive rock band. We're going back a long, long time, and they used to sit there on the stage and just play the instruments and play the music. And it was the front man, the singer, that felt, you know what, I think we need to do something very theatrical to help bring these songs to life, give the audience something to look at. And that band was called Genesis. And it was Peter Gabriel that decided to put all the costumes on and started doing all this theatrical stuff. The other band members still sat around the back of the stage playing the music. But so it's interesting, that theatrical element, especially in what you do, interests me. Incidentally, have you got a copy of the album you could show up? You know, maybe my subscribers would like to see it.
Yes. So this is it.
Fabulous. That's Red Fugue.
Yes, it's Red Fugue. It's our first album. It first came out in 2018. As soon as you open the album, there's a picture with all the different elements in the album and all the different themes somehow. One of our songs is about a hotel. So there's a hotel. There's a woman holding a man's head, because the vertebra, the guest, yes, the heart. So these are all themes that we explore in our songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we basically have 5 songs. What?
Sorry, it's getting a bit laggy, the computer, that's all. Yes, I mean, I will certainly put, I've certainly enjoyed listening to it, but I've been listening to it on Spotify. I will certainly put a purchasing link just below this video, so anyone who wants to check this album out, and I encourage that you do so, please click on the link. So anyway, so how much does taxidermy and cooking magazines inform your music?
Very good question. Would you like to open up?
That was a joke we put in. Hopefully no one would notice, but it was noticed, and now we have to answer for it. Basically. Again, as much as the word soup in our band name goes, it's like and taxidermy. The taxidermy element, because we explore it in our first album, it's because the main figure in the album, in the story, she captures different elements and she stuffs them. She wants to create something which is permanent because she's afraid of change. So she stuffs different elements of different limbs, etc. It's a bit grotesque as well, but for her it's because she is afraid of change. She wants to capture permanence.
Okay.
And the cooking magazine element is because there's a shooting, but it's a joke mainly.
And it's also a little bit inspired by the music, because at some point when we were working on Xenolytic Cold, at the very end, which is the second song in our album, I was hearing the music and I was like, but I can't come up with a good vocal line. What can I do? I can't come up. And suddenly I was like, let me see what am I going to cook tomorrow. And somehow that thought together with the music made sense during that rehearsal. And I was like, since taxidermy, somehow in Taxidermy Hotel, the woman is somehow cooking all of these limbs together and going through the process to somehow form whatever she wants to form. Then maybe let me put a recipe out there, and then I can invite people to somehow participate in it. And in one of our shows, I had this huge calderon and I invited people in and they were mixing together in it on stage. So I could be a bit more playful with it as well. So the idea of having a recipe or a cookbook in that sense helps to somehow involve people and make it more collaborative, I think.
Well, I mean, obviously you've got a track on the album called Taxidermy Hotel, and you've probably touched upon it, but it's a lengthy number, isn't it? It's about 15 minutes. Is that the one that's all about this woman that doesn't want to accept change? How does this song work exactly? What's the narrative behind that?
No, this song is actually the centerpiece of the album.
It is, yes.
The female figure, because there's a female figure and there's a male figure. The female figure is explored in the first two songs, the Choking Swans and the Xenolytic track, and the male figure, he comes from Mars. He's a guy who's looking for his heart, basically. It's all largely metaphorical, but in the words of poetry, it makes sense, And then in Taxidermy Hotel, there is the confrontation of sorts, which is basically not a confrontation, it's basically her chase. She wants to play around, and he's trapped in this taxidermy Escher-like structure, with a tinge of stuffed, like Dr. Moreau figures, but even more grotesque. And this is the centerpiece of the album. The different moods are even brought out in the different moods, music-wise, are even brought out in lyrics.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's quite dark, really, sort of the idea of it, I think, in some ways. Musically, what would you say your influences were?
Basically,
first time we've heard him speak.
Yes.
I'm mostly here to look pretty, so. So I mean, it's a tricky question, but all five of us have completely different backgrounds of music. I come from a more metal-focused background. Mike comes more from
Man, my background is
Yeah.
I like Rush. I love Rush, but I'm more into King Crimson, Genesis, Camille, Kate Bush, Alan Parsons. That's the music I was
Like classic, like the classic prog.
more into modern, groovy, melodic stuff.
Yeah. So that's all. They're all the sort of European and European prog, isn't it? Really, sort of King Crimson.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
more influenced towards European.
Yes.
Oh,
Kate Bush, of course, is doing very well at the moment with Stranger
yes.
Things. Very well. That's what you want to do. You want to get your songs on Stranger Things. So your album is
No
called,
spoilers.
so your album is called Red Fugue. Is there a theme? But is there a reason for that title? I know the artwork is kind of red. Is there a theme behind it? Is it a concept that you explore on the whole album, or is it just a collection of songs?
So when we talk about fugue, we are talking about the psychological state of someone who is dissociated and very much somehow enclosed within his own world. And we always felt that the woman in taxidermy was very much like so. Even the alien who comes from Mars is also like that.
The male figure.
The male figure. So the fugue is the psychological state of these two main characters in our album, and then red because we speak about the heart, we speak about red somehow comes up in different parts of our lyrics and in different aspects of our songs. So then we said red fugue. Okay, we like that, and red is also a little bit dangerous, and when we that's what we associate with it. And throughout the story, when Michael was writing the lyrics for Taxidermy, I was thinking, no, you idiot, from the man from Mars, don't go there, come back, where are you going into the hotel, come back. So I was like, okay, I like the feeling of having like a red warning, like don't go there. So that's how that red fugue came about.
Okay. About the generally about the creative process, how do you actually construct your music? I mean, is it kind of you all just get together with ideas and thrash things out, or do you have like clear ideas before you? Is it all written down before you go into the rehearsal space? I mean, how does it work?
So basically, also I can comment on the newer stuff. I have been with Weber for like 2 years, so I can't comment really much on Refuge. But when it comes to the new stuff, everyone has his time constraints, so we do a lot of work at home, but then we all meet up and we fuse everything together, make structures, combine, change, experiment. So a lot of work is done at home, but then the fun stuff is at rehearsals.
Yeah. What comes first, the music or the lyrics?
Music. Because the music sets the mood, and then the mood gives a picture, and with the picture comes the lyrics. That's how we work.
Although with the upcoming EP, the track in the middle, Tetrahedron Paradise, it's called. The lyrics were written years before. I wrote them years before. The actual music.
Yes, but we decided to use those lyrics with that music once the music was finished. So the music was finished, and then we said, once Mike has written those set of lyrics, maybe they match, and they actually did match.
Adapted.
And we adapted them for it.
The right lyrics for the right mood, basically.
Exactly. But usually it's always the music that sets the vibe, and then everything else.
Exactly.
So who actually writes the lyrics? Is it a collective thing, or I wonder if Anne-Marie, do you write the lyrics, or do you who writes the music and who writes the lyrics, basically? How's this work? It's
basically me and Mike who write the lyrics. With Red Fugue, I only wrote one track, and Mike wrote 4 tracks. With the new tracks and the EP, we took turns. So it's like one I wrote myself, then the following one he wrote, and then suddenly, for example, he hears a song and he says, "Oh, this I want to write the lyrics for it," and he writes the lyrics for it. So it's basically us two who write lyrics for the tracks.
Mm. And you, who comes up with the ideas for the actual songs themselves? Does that come from the tone of the music?
Yes.
You sort of think of, or well, because I mean, it's like watching.
Yes.
this tragedy unfolds sometimes. It's so dramatic when you perform this on stage. It's absolutely fabulous. If I had to ask you a question individually, is what album, I often talk to some people, say, what album was it that you were listening to that kind of turned you on to music, that made you want to be musicians? What was the album for you that you heard and thought, that's what I want to do?
Oh, interesting.
I answered because I had the good fortune to interview Mark Kelly from Marillion, and he said when he heard Rick Wakeman's Journey to the Center of the Earth, that was the one that made him want to play keyboards. Stephen Rothery said it was Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. I'm just wondering, what was the album that turned the light on for you?
I think it comes from different stages in life. I was brought up with even Jeff Wayne and all that. Music was always present, and there were always the albums I would go to. I used to love Pink Floyd, I used to love Queen when I was much younger. Vangelis, my father has an extensive collection, and he always brought us up listening attentively to music, not as a background commodity. So, and if I have to go back, the album and the artwork, everything else, which made it for me was Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds.
Okay.
But then when I grew up, it was Opeth, which it was Blackwater Park.
And that's quite heavy album.
Yeah. Arcturus, The Sham Mirrors, those were, and Tool, Lateralus, those three albums really were a huge part of my formation when I was growing older. And that's when I decided I want to make music with those three albums. But at the background, it's very important what I was brought up in.
Okay. And Anne-Marie, what album was it for you that made you think this is what I want to do? Was it Kate Bush?
I love Kate Bush. I love her theatrics. I love her way of being, and she somehow plays a string within me that resonates in ways in which I think that I don't have enough words to describe it. But in truth, I am classically trained, so my training has always been in opera singing. And with my family, then we were always yes, and mainly classical opera. That's what we used to listen to at home. And also Italian music, like traditional Italian music. That's what we used to be mainly exposed to. And then one day, my older brother, as he was coming back from school, he was like, "And you need to listen to this stuff. It's amazing." And he brought out the Black Album from Metallica. I was around 9 years, I think, at the time, and we put it on our cassette. And we started jumping, and we broke one of the beds, and we started headbanging. It was amazing, and I think that that was what has introduced me into the metal scene more than anything. And then I thought that opera was too boring for me. And as I was training more and more and more, it became a little bit too formal and too restrictive. So then I said bye-bye to opera, and I went to wherever the song goes.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Black Album by Metallica. It's my favorite Metallica album, but you say that to a lot of Metallica fans, and that they always see that album as a kind of a betrayal in a way, because obviously the albums that came before then, that, you know, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, they were the like true Metallica, and a lot of fans seem to see the Black Album as a bit of a sellout album, really. But being a bit of a sucker for melody and more melodicism in music, it rather appeals to me, to be honest. I really like that record.
Yes.
And this chap to your, I think to your right or left. Go on, what were your rounds?
My main exposure to music was basically just constant TV on MTV. So
MTV,
pop punk rock of the time. But I think I had a bit more my playing than my tastes in music, more to 3 bands. I think that are my influences. It's Depeche Mode for the modes, what they managed to do with their mood, and their ambient is amazing. Gojira for the grooves. I mean, it's breathtaking, it's heavy, it's just wow. And Moonspell for the dark
Yeah,
ambient
absolutely.
melodies. So mostly those three albums are what shaped my playing to what it is
Okay.
today. But
I
starting from
remember
pop punk.
as a kid, I used to going back way back to the early '80s. Used to put on Top of the Pops. I don't even know. Have you heard of Top of the Pops?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Used to be a very, very popular program over here, but it used to be Top of the Pops on in the '80s. In the '80s was all this electronic music, and of course, and Depeche Mode were always on. It was just them and a couple of keyboards, very minimalistic. It was quite interesting, but at the time, I think I was more into the sort of post-punk sound than that sort of electronic. But I came to appreciate Depeche Mode much later on, I think. So this album, Red Fugue, that's your latest album, yes?
That's our original, our first release. Our upcoming release,
It's not out yet.
it's not out yet. No.
Okay, so what can you tell us about the album that's about to come out?
No.
There are basically 3 tracks.
It's tracks. It's called
3 tracks.
Yeah.
3 tracks.
Fabulous.
It's an experimental project, but it's very well contained. It's not sparse. It has one vision. These 3 tracks. It's called Tetrahedron Paradise. It's about basically our songs are about many things, but if we have to distill them into something concise, it's about a relationship of sorts. With one relationship with death, one relationship with one's own mind, and the boundaries the walls one creates in one's own mind in order to hide away something which is true and profound. It's also about one's relationship with consumption, one relationship even consuming the other. It could be a partner, it could be a friend, it could be anyone, because sometimes even our energies consume one another.
Mhm.
So it's contained in that manner, but basically the themes are about relationship, consumption, and all that.
Okay, so it's a concept album. Sorry,
It got stuck.
okay. So it's a concept album.
Basically, yes. Our even the first album, it's a loose concept album, and even the second one is going to be a loose concept album.
Okay. So this Red Fugue, if you would encourage people to buy it from your website rather than going to Amazon and buy it, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there is an option on www.vipersubcomplex.com, and anyone can easily buy it from there.
Yeah.
I will certainly use that link. I've one more question for you actually, which is if you could have written any song, which song would it have been? Imagine all the great songs in history. If you could have written one song that you think is the best.
Can I go first?
Sorry?
Can I go first?
Yep.
Can you go first?
It's got stuff. Starless by King Crimson in red.
Okay. Good choice. Give that buys Anne-Marie some time, of course, to try and think of what she wants to say.
Enjoy the silence by Depeche Mode.
Good choice. It's a bit of a stinker of a question, but I'm always interested to ask it, really. I spoke to Mick Box from Uriah Heep, and he said he wished he could have written and had the royalties for Happy Birthday.
Okay.
Clever.
We took it seriously.
The amount of money he would. Of course, we've got Slade in this country. The Slade, they do that song "Merry Christmas, Everybody,"
Yeah.
and they must make a fortune every Christmas. So Anne-Marie, if it was one song that you wish you could have written, what song would it have been?
I think that the in-between between the opera and the somehow metal that came after the Black Album for me was Nightwish. So I have to go for That Boy's Poem by Nightwish. That Boy's Poem by Nightwish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nightwish, isn't that the band that you said? Is it Tyre used to sing for them? Am I right?
Yeah.
Used to, yes. Yes.
Yes, that's right. Yes. No, it's an interesting chat. So I will certainly, hopefully, you will keep me informed when your new album is about to be launched. Maybe I can do something on my channel to talk about it, perhaps. But I wish you all the very best. And I don't know, what time is it where you are now at the moment? What time is it?
So it's 8:30.
Oh, okay. Okay, not too bad. So I wish you all the very best. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Again, I will say to my subscribers, do check out the album Red Fugue. It is an absolutely fascinating listen. If, of course, you're a complete skinflint, you go and check out on Spotify first if you want to. But I would encourage you to actually have a physical. I have a very tactile relationship with music. I like to hold it in my hands and listen and look at the artwork and things like that. But places like Spotify are always a good place to start, I think, at least. Although I don't think the artists get a lot of money out of Spotify, I don't think.
No, not at all.
But yes, saying something nasty.
but yes, it's a good way to get your music out there as well.
It's a platform, but it's not viable financially. Nothing. It's a convenient platform. Let me say that.
Well, Roger Daltrey from The Who, I read his autobiography. He said Spotify is just a form of theft. That's what he described it. But I suspect he and The Who do better out of Spotify than lots of young bands like yourself, I would imagine. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wish you a good evening. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I hope we manage to shift some of your albums. Hopefully somebody will buy a few copies. Anyway, all the best. Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.